Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up as usual to the festival. When the festival was ended, they started to return. The boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Assuming that he was in the group of travelers, they went a day's journey. Then they started to look for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." He said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. His mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in years and in divine and human favor. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Happy second Sunday of Christmas to you on this, the very 12th day of Christmas. I hope you have good feasting tonight, this 12th night. You might note mathematically that we don't always get a second Sunday of Christmas because the season of Christmas is a little shorter than 2 weeks. But here we are this year. And our cycle of readings, it's called the lectionary, the cycle of readings that we get every 3 years. We come around through that cycle in the church. It offers 3 different gospel opportunities, different possibilities for this day. The one we just heard from Luke of teenage Jesus and his astonished parents, and 2 from Matthew, recounting the visit of the Magi, coming from afar, traveling to honor him and bring these lavish gifts. And then also a passage recounting King Herod in his murderous pursuit of Jesus, and Mary and Joseph and Jesus' flight out to Egypt to hide, their long hiding there, and then finally their return to their normal place in the world. Alongside today, there's only one other day, which is Christmas Day, where you get 3 different gospel options. And I wondered if the lectionary creators just couldn't help themselves. I wish to preach with you today, actually, about this layering of these texts over one another. Jesus the baby, honored lavishly by foreign magi. Jesus the hunted refugee, homeless from the afflictions of an evil king. And Jesus the teenager, evoking amazement, astonishment, anxiety. And then as a sending note to all of that, this curious response from Mary, who treasured all these things in her heart. But in order to speak to you of these things, I'm actually going to speak to you about Charles Dickens. And I'm grateful, I have to say, to Frederick Bush for the biographical insights on Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens was born in 1812 in Portsea, England. He He was one of 8 children who, throughout their lives, throughout their growing up, they were on the ragged edge of poverty. When he was in grade school, his father was incarcerated in debtor's prison, which I have to admit to you I did not fully understand. In order for you to be punished for not paying your debts, they put you in prison where you cannot work, and they put you there until you will pay off your debts. But your family can live with you in prison, and they did. Your family could come and go, but you're stuck there. And so young Charles was forced to leave school, to live in prison, and to work daily at Warren's Blacking, 30 Strand, where with boys he thought low and in conditions that were surely both unhealthy and unhappy, as Bush records, he pasted labels on bottles of black goo. He felt threatened and he felt powerless. He recalled the fear of his walk to that place of work through dangerous neighborhoods. He was there for 2 to 3 months, and he wrote later that as a grown man, he could not pass Warren's Blacking without weeping at the smell. He never told his wife or children about that experience, but we know it because he did write to one good friend about it. By turns just as sudden, but happier, he was able to leave that space to return to his education, to begin writing, and even to find, of course, popular success in his writing. And he remembered all of those turns in his life. Having enough, being chased, he wrote, as he wrote, a wrong that had no intervals of relenting and was done in a systematic, passionless manner, coldly neglected. He's writing there not just about those 3 months, but about an experience of his whole childhood. And then the return to education and coming into warmth and food and safety and the space to live out his gifts. And that he remembered the whole of it is evident in his works. For instance, in A Christmas Carol, where he weaves us intimately into the lives of all these characters, into scenes of love and joy that are at once also the story of poverty and of cold and of empty spirits that are searching for meaning. Dickens wanted to gift that closeness to his readers. He was moved on our behalf. As he wrote in the narrator's voice in A Christmas Carol, I am standing in spirit at your elbow as you read this. He gave us the gift of being able to genuinely both cry for Tiny Tim when he dies in the vision of the Christmas yet to be, and to cry for Tiny Tim when he lives, as we see after Scrooge is transformed by this journey. Can you see the similarity of the layering of the 3 gospel stories today? The gifts for Jesus, death pursuing Jesus, Jesus amazing the elders and astounding his anxious parents with the life that is in him. You see all these layers also in Dickens' writing. Charles Dickens was haunted, and the Christmas Carol is a haunting story. Charles Dickens was haunted himself forever by the bodily and spiritual neglect that he had passed through. Writing to a friend in later life, he said, I often forget in my dreams that I have a dear wife and family, even that I am a man. And he also lived exuberantly and out of abundance. The day after Christmas in 1843, which is just a week after the release of A Christmas Carol, which sold out immediately, he was at a party, and his friend Jane Carlyle recounted, Dickens and Forster, above all, exerted themselves till the perspiration was pouring down, and they seem drunk with their efforts. Only think of that excellent Dickens playing the conjurer. He was a magician. For 1 whole hour, the best conjurer I ever saw. This part of the entertainment concluded with a plum pudding made out of raw flour, raw eggs, all the usual raw ingredients, boiled in a gentleman's hat, and tumbled out reeking, all in 1 minute, before the eyes of the astonished children and astonished grown people. That trick, and his other of changing ladies' pocket handkerchiefs into comfits, and a box full of bran into a box full of a live guinea pig, would enable him to make a handsome subsistence, let the bookseller trade go as it please. That he could be both, that he could be all of this together, in engaging the world, and engaging neighbor, and engaging his self, engaging God even, and helping us do all of these too. Dickens kept alive his whole life, right to the end. He, in the winter of 1869, this is just before his death, in considerable pain, he lay on a sofa as guests and family played the memory game. You say a word, and then you have to say that word and add yours, and you go around and around. And this was Christmas Day. Christmas night, rather. And this is a remembrance also of his son Henry. The string of words was long when Dickens' turn came. He repeated them all and was then to add his own contribution. According to Henry, there was a pause for a while, and then, with a strange twinkle in his eye and a curious modulation in his voice, he gave his words as Warren's Blacking, 30, Strand. The way he spoke struck his fellow players of the memory game as strange. They didn't understand the meaning of his words. The party bubbled on, and Dickens lay in the lap of family love. It seems to me that Charles Dickens treasured in his heart his entire walk. And out of that, he was able to tell us the story of life well. This second Sunday of Christmas, which itself has this playful, teasing character of sometimes being with us and sometimes not, we are present, Ed, with these layers of reading, a Dickensian selection. And in them we see Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and hopefully ourselves, walking through the joys and sufferings of life, all as one and the same life. And we have a chance, by seeing them together, to do as Mary did, and to do as Charles Dickens seems to have been capable in his own way, to treasure in our hearts the wholeness of our own walk with God, God with us. It's Emmanuel, God with us. And in staying alive to all that we have known, remembering it all, to let God make us whole. And to love God and to love neighbors, to love ourselves without leaving anything out. We become better able to love by walking in the whole of it. And this is the miracle of what God has done at Christmas.